to The Straight Stitch, a podcast about sewing and other fiber arts. This is episode 111, and my name is Janet Szabo. I'll be your guide as we explore all things sewing. I finally got back into the sewing room, and I had a fairly productive week. I finished the McCall's 8636 unisex pants. I made those out of Kona Crush, which we're carrying at the quilt store where I teach. The pattern is fun to make. It's got some really nice details, but it's not complicated or fussy. And we have that scheduled for an April class on a Saturday. We're trying to get more men to come into the store. I know that there are men sewers out there, but I am sure that they are reluctant to come into a quilt store. So we're doing what we can to kind of counter that perception and hopefully get some young men in the store and maybe even some older men who want to make their own clothes. I also spent one day this week making class samples for my serger class at Sew Expo. That class sold out within the first 2 days, and they've added a second session. I'm pretty sure that when I submitted that class proposal, I asked for a 2.5-hour time slot, and I've only got an hour and a half. The class is on creative uses for your serger's cording foot. This is a cording foot, not a piping foot, and I think that's going to cause a bit of confusion. So Bernina and Janome and Juki all have separate piping and cording feet for their sergers. Baby Lock, as far as I can tell, only has a piping foot. So I'm a bit concerned that people are going to show up thinking I'm going to show them how to make piping on their serger and what to do with it. But I actually think the cording foot is more versatile. So I've got, I think, 6 different samples, 6 different techniques using the cording foot, and I'm a little worried that we're not going to get through all of them in the 90 minutes, but we'll get through as many as we can. I've got the handout written, and I've got most of the samples made so that I can pass those around for people to look at. I will be putting the kits together for that class this week. I also have 2 other classes that I need to put kits together for, and if I have any time left over after all the kits and the handouts are prepared, I might try and whip up a top or a pair of pants to wear. This week at the store, I taught a machine mastery class, and I also taught a class on the Tremont jacket by the Sewing Workshop. The jacket class was a lot of fun. I had a student in there who had never made a piece of clothing before, and she was able to make the jacket in the day-long class. I also put together a new shelving unit. You can tell that you're of a certain age when new shelving makes you excited. I had some space in our older daughter's former bedroom after we took her blanket chest out and took it to her a few weeks ago. So I got a shelving unit to organize all of my AccuQuilt dies, and I was really happy about that. I'm not terribly happy with AccuQuilt at the moment, though, and they're going to get a shout out from me on this podcast because I ordered a 2.5-inch studio strip cutter die back in November. So I have the studio cutter. It takes a different kind of die than the dies that you see at quilt stores. And I ordered the 2.5-inch strip cutter die, and it never came. And I must have forgotten about it. Because in January, when the studio dies went on sale, I said to myself, I was going to buy a 2.5-inch strip cutter die. I still need that die. So I went to the website and I ordered it. And when the order history came up, I saw that my November order was still in process. It was listed there and it said processing. And then there was the January order, which was also listed as processing. So I sent an email to the customer service department, and the next day I got a reply, and the reply said, all of our studio dies are currently being manufactured and shipped from China, and your orders are now in the pipeline and can't be canceled. Apparently, they transitioned to a new manufacturer and they've had some hiccups along the way. But did they contact their customers to let them know? No, they did not. They let them sit in silence for 2 months waiting for their orders. So I now have two 2.5-inch strip cutter studio dies on their way to me, the first of which is supposed to arrive mid-February. We'll see. And the second of which may arrive who knows when. They won't give me a refund. I can't return them. The only thing they're willing to do is to issue me award points in the amount of the cost of the die, which is better than nothing, I guess. So if anybody out there needs a 2.5-inch strip die, let me know. It's for the studio cutter. I would be happy to ship it to you for the cost of what I paid for it, which was on sale. I get that there are manufacturing glitches. I get that there are things outside the company's control. I get that. But at the very least, they should have communicated with their customers so that the customers would know what was going on and wouldn't try to order the die again. I think that's all the sewing news I have for you this week. I'm very excited about today's guest. Her name is Tricia Camacho, and she is the guiding force behind PatternCon. PatternCon is a convention for enthusiasts of pattern drafting and pattern making. This is its second year, and I invited Tricia on the show to talk about PatternCon, how it got started, how it's doing, and where it's going in the future. So I'm here with Tricia Camacho today, and we are going to talk about PatternCon and some other things. So welcome to the podcast.
Yay. Thank you, Janet. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for asking me.
So I usually start by asking my guests, how did you learn to sew? Who taught you? How long have you been sewing?
Yeah, I have been sewing a very long time. Since I was about 7. Since I was a kid, I've always been interested in it. It started with my grandma's. For me, my mother also sewed, and I learned to sew on her sewing machine first. But I would go every summer to each of my grandmother's house, like at separate times, for about a week or two, my younger sister and I, and they would, have projects for us to work on. And so that's where I started learning how to sew, and it continued from there. I've always been a really tall girl, like even when I was younger, so it was always hard to find pants that would fit in the waist and also be long enough. It was like high waters was the story of my life. So I kind of started sewing more like in high school, and really started to think of, things that I wanted. I would have like dream up these designs and things that I wanted, and try to figure them out. Sometimes it wasn't always successful, but when I would go to visit grandma in the summertime, she would give me some pointers. But yeah, that's kind of where it started.
And how did that evolve into a business?
Yeah, well, that's always a funny story. So, PatternCon is the newest kid on the block, I would say. But my most of my career, most of my life, professional life, has been making costumes for big theatrical productions. So that's where my sewing business life started, basically. After high school, I was interested in theater. I was taking like theater classes in high school. But I was like, I'm not going to be an actress. Like, that's not my path. I didn't feel that for me, even though I enjoyed it. And then I loved sewing. And I had taken just one class at high school, and I was kind of already past what they were teaching, and I ended up just helping the teacher. And so I was like, well, those are my two interests. but I don't really see myself going into the fashion world either, because I'm not really somebody who follows trends and like wants to influence people to wear what I like to wear, that kind of thing. So I was like, well, I guess I'll do my other favorite thing and travel for a while. Well, I think about it. And I would say that to people. People would ask like what I'm going to do. And I say, well, I like theater and I like fashion, but I don't want to go into either one of those. And somebody just happened to mention it to me. Why don't you go into like costuming or costume design? And that way you can be sewing, but not in the fashion world, and be involved in theater and not be on stage. And it was like, ding, like a light bulb went off, and I started exploring that. So that's kind of how I got into that world. I started volunteering at theaters and started kind of going down that path. And so that's where my career began, and it began for work. And a lot of work for shows, it doesn't start, you're doing repairs or you're dressing and setting up for the show. It's not always sewing. Those are more, they're higher paid jobs, or you're not in the theater. You're like at a costume shop outside of the theater. So I kind of did all variations of those kinds of things over my career, until I landed in Vegas. I was working on a show and started my own business, making costumes for performers that wanted to do stuff outside of shows, and making costumes for like go-go dancers in the nightclubs and things like that. And then that blossomed into, while I was doing that, peers, because like I said, I was a technician, meaning I did repairs and like building some small things for the show that I was working on. And there's dressers, and that was a higher paying job, was the more technical job that I had. And so I had peers of mine who were asking like how could they get more skills and kind of increase their technical skills so that they could move up into those positions. And that's when people started to ask me about pattern making and if I would teach it. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm not I didn't know where to start. And so I just kind of did one class one week. I was like, we'll start here. This is what has helped me. And I actually got involved with the Clark County School District and ended up teaching all of the fashion teachers in all of Las Vegas County. So it kind of snowballed from there, and it was all local. So it was like working on shows at night, running my business during the day. Every, month or so, I would do a class on the weekend for pattern making. It was a lot. And so that's kind of how it started going into being a business. And then when I moved from Las Vegas, I lived in Las Vegas for 11 years. I moved to North Carolina, where I live now. And that's when I fully started living off of my business, because a lot of my clients, Cirque du Soleil, Blue Man Group, Disney, I was making stuff in Las Vegas and sending it off anyway. So, and that was kind of the whole goal with my business, was that I wouldn't have to stay in Las Vegas. And then in addition to that, people kept asking me about my classes. And I'm like, well, and I was still going back and forth to Las Vegas. But it just was like, to find the perfect weekend, to find enough people, to make it worth my time to come back, it just became a big chore. So that's when I thought about moving stuff online. And that's when my online school kind of started, was about 2018. I put it online. Nobody knew it existed because I wasn't on social media back then. And I was like, oh darn, I gotta figure out how to like tell people about this. And that's when 2019 was really when I started kind of marketing my teachings more. And then 2020, my costume career disappeared overnight, as all live entertainment ceased to happen for a couple of years. So that's when I really was like, well, this has to start working for me. And I really started pouring a lot more into the teaching, and kind of discovered that reward was even better to me than making all these big, costumes for big shows and stuff. As cool as that is and was, it really started to tug on my heartstrings that I could actually help people. And I get messages all the time, at least weekly, if not more, of people telling me that I've changed their lives, that they suddenly, this makes sense, and what I thought would be something to kind of supplement my costume income, you know, and when costuming came back, I was like, well, as long as it can, get me to a place where I won't have to take every gig and work myself to the bone, I'll be happy. And then when costuming came back, I really wanted to prioritize the teaching and helping people. And I did continue to do the costuming for a couple of years, and I just kind of put that on pause actually starting last year to focus solely on the teaching and to make PatternCon become a reality, because PatternCon was a dream that I had for like 3 years, 3 or 4 years. It was like, wouldn't it be cool if we could get everybody together, and just learn from each other? And like, there's so many different facets to pattern making that are super cool. And just selfishly, for my reason, I'm like, that would be so much fun. I know all of my friends who are into this would be into it, and students would be into it. So that's kind of how the path of how this all came to be, I guess.
That's very cool. So, how many years have you been doing PatternCon?
The first year was last year, PatternCon.
Wow.
So PatternCon 25 was the first year ever.
And
Yeah.
I have heard tremendous things about it. It was something that was needed.
Yeah, I just wanted to on that for a second, because it wasn't like, obviously this was something I really wanted to do, that I dreamed about for years. I talked about it for years. I talked about it with my students, like, would you be interested in that? But I really wanted to know if it was something that people would show up for. I mean, this is a big financial investment that I am making to make this happen. And so I started with a retreat, was the first. So we did a retreat last February, actually, was the first, like, let's see if people are interested, where we fit people into their sloper and helped them to correct it. And then by the end of the weekend, they left with a sloper that fit them. We could, because we had to individually fit every person and help them, had a friend, colleague, teacher of mine help me as well. And so we did 20 people. We sold that retreat July of 23, and that sold out in 45 seconds. So I was like, oh, people are into this. They want this. And anytime I bring it up, people were really excited about it. And then having it be the first year. So our first year, 25, we had 250 people in Charlotte. Um, and this year we're going for 400 in Atlanta. I think we're at 240 right now. And it's not till August. So we're on track. I'm pretty happy with where we are with that. But yeah, I mean, I think people are hungry to come together in person. Sewing is such a solitary hobby for a lot of people. So to be surrounded by people who get excited about the things we get excited about, that maybe our spouses, kids, and neighbors don't fully understand. And the other thing is, I've learned a lot about virtual fitting, which was new, over COVID. But and it's definitely, I've figured out how to help people with that way, but it's a lot easier to be in person. It's such a, let me show you what you're looking for, let me show you how to do it, than trying to explain it to someone who doesn't know, like, do it like that. No, not like that, like this. So I think that really helps as well. Like, people really need help with that. And the other thing is, I've been to some other sewing conventions, quilt cons, quilt fest, Puyallup, and there are a few garment classes in there, sewing clothes here and there, but a lot of them cater to more quilting or garment sewing. And I think that people who want to do garment sewing, that's another thing, is they're looking for resources to help them with that process.
I've taught, this will be the third year that I'm teaching it in Puyallup. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, it definitely was quilt heavy there for a while, but
Yes.
I sense that they're trying to move away from that. But I even noticed, I went to Bernina University last June
Mm,
because I teach at a couple of Bernina dealers here. And
yeah.
there was a big emphasis at Bernina University last year. Everyone, the dealers seem to be hungry for garment making information.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually going to be speaking at HH America's conference, which is a trade show for businesses, but they're doing their first ever consumer show, FFCF, Fabric. I'm going to probably be horrible at the name, but Fabric and Craft Festival, FFCF. I'm also teaching there. That is for consumers. So, and they're offering classes and other things too. And they kind of reached out to me, I think, because same thing. They're trying to get more garment sewing people because the interest is there for sure.
You determined that there was a need for this, and you had your first one, and this year you're having your second one in Atlanta, and you've got some heavy hitters on the schedule. So Kenneth King is one of your
Yes.
keynote speakers, and Cornelius Quiring. I had him on the podcast
Oh,
about a
he's
year
so
ago.
lovely.
So,
I'm so excited.
I mean, it's obvious that people are hungry for this. So, what kinds of classes do you have on the slate?
Yeah. I'm first of all very, very excited that Kenneth and Cornelius are both coming. Cornelius, he fit, like I say, my persona online is your pattern nerd friend because I feel like people are scared of pattern making. People, are intimidated by the process, and I'm like, no, like I want to really make it accessible for people and fun. And I think Cornelius, that's why I reached out to him. He does that so well on his YouTube channel, and he just kind of fits right in to the PatternCon environment. So I'm very excited to meet him. He's been very lovely, and he's excited to meet people that he has only met online. So he's just so wonderful. I'm really looking forward to that. And Kenneth King and I have actually been growing a relationship over the last couple of years. He's been supportive of what I've been doing for the last few years, and we've done lives together, and I've supported his books and things. And so I was like, you have to come, and he couldn't come last year. He did a virtual thing last year, and he said that he would come in person this year. So very excited for Kenneth. He just has such great stories, and we're also going to do a VIP night with them on Saturday night and get a little extra time with them for the select few that bought those tickets. So the classes, it's really important to me with PatternCon that we had a wide variety of classes, because I know some people, because that is the main thing I want to push across to PatternCon, that this is for everyone. This is for if you are at the very beginning of your sewing journey, you don't know anything about pattern making, you don't know what tools to use. We have very beginner classes like that will introduce you to what it is, what tools to use, that kind of thing. And then we have all the way up to people who've been maybe dabbling in this for years and are just a pattern nerd like I am, and want to learn more, like, pattern origami and like crazy things like that. So we have those classes as well. So we have quite the gamut. We have drafting classes, people are really interested in like drafting their bodice, but if drafting isn't your thing, we have draping your bodice on the body or draping it on a dress form. I'm really happy to introduce like we have a couple adaptive classes for people with disabilities. And as you get older, because that is something that is not taught a lot. And my good friend Lynn Branley of Sewn Adaptive and Lynn Wardrobe Sews, she's going to be teaching those classes. I'm very excited to offer those. Just like I said, this is for everyone. We're also introducing more cosplay classes this year. So making patterns from, like the whole duct tape method of making a corset. We have a class on that. Denise is going to be teaching that class. She's somebody that I know, and she does a lot of cosplay. I met her in Chapel Hill at the graduate program that they have there, and she used to actually be a stitcher for me. So I'm really excited. She's bringing that, and then also working with like thermoplastics and different like very cosplay cool materials. So we have that. We have you know, like identifying what signifies like a well-made coat and jacket. So like some tailoring techniques and things that you can introduce to your sewing. So Julian Creates is going to be doing that for us, as well as like, how do you take, what does he call it? I don't remember the name of the exact class, but how do you take like a female pattern and adapt it for a male body and vice versa? Like things to be aware of for that. And then we have like scaling up drafting classes by Mrs. Depew. I'm trying to think of all that, like historical classes, you know, like, so people who are into like the historical drafting stuff, which I think she has Connie, she's Dr. Connie. She's got a doctorate and she's an ex-Navy commander. And she actually did a thesis on these drafting systems from the 1920s, I want to say, 20s, 30s. And so she teaches you about these drafting systems and gives you a chance to like play with them and do that. And then I honestly really like her other class, and wish I could take more of these classes, to be honest. I'm teaching 4, so there won't be time for that. But she's also teaching about just the history of the Keister program. And like, it's so inspiring to me because it gave women an opportunity, women especially, an opportunity to run their own business, to make their own money. Back in a time, even more so, when it was almost unheard of. And so it really just talks about the power of this skill, and that's really important to me. So there's classes on that. There's fitting classes, sleeve fitting classes, you know, pant fitting classes. There's bralette making classes, there's panty drafting classes. You know, there's really, I tried to really make sure we have a little bit of everything for everyone, and all, you know, and it's also actually categorized, you know, whether it's a beginner class or all levels or more advanced. There's upcycling classes, you know, taught by Stephanie Canada. So just a wide range of anything having to do with fitting, drafting, and just anything to do with pattern making.
You said you're teaching 4 classes. Do you
I
have
am.
help running this?
Yes, I do. I know it's a lot. I have to say, I it's my years of experience working in show business really helped with this, because it to me it's like, oh, it's like a big show, only instead of just being in charge of the wardrobe department, I'm in charge of the whole thing. No pressure. But I do have my right hand girl. She's a good friend of mine, beginning to learn how to sew. I think we've influenced her, but that's not her background. Her name is Caitlin Lucasio King. She's actually a lawyer. We met in an entrepreneur group, and we've become really good friends. There's a core group of us, and she has her thing during COVID and maybe a little before was she helped and worked with a lot of Etsy sellers, and she helped them to do conferences anywhere from like a couple hundred people up to a couple thousand people. So I have to give her a lot of credit, because she was the one, she's been hearing me talk about this, and she's like, so are you going to do it? And I'm like, Caitlin, I don't know where to start. And she's like, well, I'll help you. I'll tell you what to do. And I'm like, she's like, all I need to hear from you is that you want to do it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So she helps me a lot. You know, she's like, we need to be doing this right now. We need to do this at that. So she basically tells me what to do, and then I go do it. So she helps me quite a bit. We also have like, other team members that help us with the organizing and all of that. But it's pretty full on when we're there. And she's always, last year I was teaching 3 classes, and she's like, I need you to teach more. And I'm like, oh my God. So it's pretty full on for me during the weekend, but I love it. It's, I thought about it after last year. I'm like, I've worked this hard before. I really have, like, for shows for other companies. It's that whole show must go on. There were lots of long days, long nights. They call it Hell Week. In the Cirque world, that's Hell Month. We're usually in creation for like 3 months, and the last month is just utter chaos and nonstop. So I think all of that really helped to prepare me for this. But the difference is at the end of the show, the end of PatternCon this last year, people were coming up to me with tears in their eyes and hugging me and saying, thank you. Sorry, it gets me emotional. Thank you for doing this. And thank you for taking a chance and trying it out. And that, again, that reward is worth so much more than any show, as much as I love those. But it's worth it. Like, I don't mind working that hard for it to have that impact on people.
It sounds like you found
yeah.
your niche.
Yeah, it really comes from a place of love, and that's something that I think is really speak to the testament of last year, is that people, that the sense of love, acceptance, community, welcoming, like, these are my people, that was the feeling that was in that room, and we want to be very mindful as we continue to not lose that. Like, we want to, of course, grow and make it bigger, and so that we can have more people, but we also want to keep that community, that intimacy, that love, is really important. So we don't want to go from 0 to 100 and, like, suddenly become this big thing where it's not personal. And that's why we went from 250 to hopefully 400 this year. But yeah, I think that community and love, acceptance, and empowerment also. Like, this is giving you skills that can help you feel more confident in your own clothes and your own body and acceptance of that, but also give you a skill, like I was explaining with the Keister system with the ladies back in the 1920s. This is a skill that you can use to make a living, like I've done, in my career. And I really, and I think that's why I'm so passionate about pattern making. It's because of the skill of pattern making that I've been able to be successful in my career. Making costumes, the stuff that I've had to make, it's so outrageous and outlandish and ridiculous, which is what I love. I'm like, ooh, let me figure that out. It's a fun challenge for me. But it's because of my knowledge in pattern making and my continued crave to learn more is what allowed me to make money in that business, to be successful at, to make sure that clothes fit people and that looks the way that the designer wants it to look at the end of the day, and turn it around quickly, so.
When you teach a class like that and you see somebody put on something that they've made themselves that fits well and that flatters their figure and their coloring, and just to see that transformation is just amazing.
It really is. It really is the best feeling. Like, it makes me so happy to see the smiles, to hear, like, the confidence grows in them. It's so that's what I mean by empowering. It's just like, wow, I did this, like, this is fully me and how I want to feel and how I want to express myself. And it's just such a wonderful feeling to give that to someone, to see that light bulb go off, and to see how inspired and excited that they get with all the things that I would have never even thought. They're like, oh, I can do this now. And I'm like, yeah, definitely, you can do that. And it's just so cool. It's the best.
You're hoping that PatternCon will continue to grow, and I suspect that it will.
Yeah.
Are there challenges that come with getting bigger?
Yeah. It's always it's all the little things. There's so many little tasks to figure out, technology to figure out, just logistics. Logistics of like how are we getting everything there, because our plan is to move around, to not always be in the same city, to kind of be in different places. So that becomes more challenging, is like, how do I get 40 dress forms to Atlanta, or who am I going to talk to, those little things that you don't really think about. So yeah, I would say just the logistics of things, just, working with the hotels on getting my room blocks. And one thing that I guess I didn't expect, people are so excited that I cannot give information fast enough. Like, people are just like as soon as PatternCon was over, they're like, when's the next one? When's the next one? I'm like, okay, hold on. Like, let me find the place, negotiate the contract, and then, like, book all the teachers and figure out the class schedule. And, and then we actually launched 26 tickets over Black Friday and the first week of December. So there was a lot that had to be figured out, and they went so quick. My volunteer tickets went on sale first. They sold out in 1 minute. We had 50 that sold out in 1 minute. And we were half sold before the new year. So that's the thing that surprises me. So then they all go to book their hotel rooms, and I have to agree to sell so many. So you don't want to like say, yeah, I'm going to sell 400 hotel rooms and then be on the hook for having to pay for those if you don't sell them all. So we agree on a certain number of rooms, and they kept selling out because people were so excited. And then they're emailing, and this is like in December, and they're like, are the rooms all sold out? Oh no, am I not going to get it? I'm like, hold on, it's the holidays and people aren't getting back to me, So I will get more rooms. It's just a process. It's like a contract and a whole thing. And it takes a lot longer than I would have thought that it would for a hotel to figure that out. But anyway, so it just speaks to, I mean, it's a great problem to have. People are so excited that anything that I do, they're like, yes, and I want that, and I want that, and I want that. And so that has been a wonderful but almost unexpected, like, okay, hold on. There's one of me and a few team members are trying to figure all of this out. So that I think as we get bigger, we'll have to streamline things and make sure that it's set up for everything and all those people and with better systems. So one thing we did improve on was like our class selection for this year. We made sure that it was ready to go right off the bat, but even that was just learning a new program, technology, making sure it works, then teaching other people how to do it. So just, I think logistics and the details are really the hard. It's like throwing a really big party with hundreds of people, and they're all ready and eager to go as soon as I say when, so it's just that's been an exciting but also a little shocking to kind of have to navigate.
That's great. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you want to talk about?
I think I touched on it a little bit, but you kind of asked me like what is the motivation or the reason behind PatternCon? I want to talk a little bit more about that. I mean, I kind of said that I officially wanted to just play with all my pattern friends and like learn cool stuff and empower people. And there's really two main reasons that are really important to me with PatternCon. And one of them is, like I mentioned earlier, pattern making has this stigma around it that people are afraid of it. It's been taught so often in one way, very technical, very math heavy. And that's something that a lot of people aren't, that holds people back. They aren't good at math. They aren't, they're afraid of math. It doesn't make sense to them. There's a lot of numbers involved with pattern making. And so in the way that I teach, I try to show other ways where that math doesn't have to be it's a more intuitive method is what I want to try to say, so that we can avoid math in a lot of situations or come up with different ways that aren't so intimidating. We're talking easy addition, like not doing anything crazy. So that's kind of my mission as a teacher, just out in the world, and what I do is to make pattern making fun, sexy, and cool, something that everybody wants to learn, but also just accessible to everyone. Like that this is something you can learn, that it can be fun to learn, that it doesn't have to be this big, intimidating thing. So that is one main reason for PatternCon. And the other reason comes from my experience in the costuming world and just my realization that the majority of the public, people in general population, don't even know what pattern making is or that it's a valuable skill. And if you think about all of the fashion designers that Yves Saint Laurent, Coco Chanel, like Dior, all of those people, often the designer is not the person actually creating the design. They have their team of people, pattern maker, cutter, draper, whatever that position is called, that has to take that sketch, figure it out, the clothing engineer part of it, so that it can be sewn and create their vision, bring their vision to life. It's a very important role, a very important key position to taking a sketch and turning it into reality. Same in my career. We work with designers, but so many people don't even acknowledge that or even are aware that that person, that position exists. And that position, that part of the puzzle makes or breaks the design. So I guarantee you that all of those designers have their trusted pattern maker, cutter, draper, person. Paul Tazwell, who's the costume designer for Wicked, is very good about talking about his crew and his team and who does what and highlighting them, which I always give him props about, because so many people don't even know that that person exists. And for what I would like to see PatternCon evolve into it, and that's why, like, bringing Cornelius and Kenneth, they're kind of the beginnings of that. But I would love to create like an award system and highlight those people and celebrate them for this amazing skill that they have, and give them their time, their day in the sunshine, in this being celebrated. Because why would anybody even care to learn it if they don't understand the power that it brings? And it's never talked about, it's never celebrated, it's never featured. And I want to change that with PatternCon. I want this to be like, wow, you're doing amazing work and you don't get acknowledged for it. We don't even know your name a lot of times. I'm a pattern nerd and I don't know any of these people's names, so that's another big reason. So making it accessible, but also just celebrating the skill itself and highlighting that as being a superpower that is worth acknowledging and celebrating.
It is a superpower. And I love the term clothing engineer.
Yes.
Because why should it be any different than building a house?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I came up with that because when I meet people and I tell them I'm a pattern maker, they were like, "Oh, like you put polka dots on fabric?" That's what they think about as stripes, like you make stripes, like a pattern, right? I'm like, no, how can I explain it in layman terms that other people can understand? Because again, a lot of people don't know that that's even a thing that people do. So yeah, it's like you have the architect or the designer, the person coming up with the design, and then somebody has to engineer and figure out how to create that thing. And that's what a pattern maker does. So it's a clothing engineer. I think that makes a lot of sense to people.
And I suspect that there are a lot of people out there who would be really good clothing engineers, but they've never been introduced to it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So, how can people find out more about PatternCon?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a very simple website, patterncon.com is the best place to check out. And you can check out the sales page where to get tickets, and there's more information about all the details about the event. You can see the list of classes that are being offered this year. And I think you can still see what we offered last year to just kind of get an idea of what we're doing. And then we also have an Instagram account, so pattern.con on Instagram, and we'll give our most latest updates over there as well.
I will make sure all of those are in the show notes.
Well, thank
Well,
you for letting me share about this. It's obviously, a big part of my heart, and I want everyone to know. I'm like, hey, everyone, come hang out at our pattern party.
I would love to get to PatternCon this year. I'm not sure it's going to happen, but it is on my wish list. So please go check it out. I think that what Tricia and the other designers are doing is desperately needed and most welcome. If you have any comments or questions or want to leave feedback, as always, you're welcome to email me at janet@janetzabo.com. You can use the fan mail feature. You can leave a comment on the show notes page. The podcast website is at www.thestraightstitchpodcast.com. My website is at www.janetzabo.com with links to my Big Sky Knitting Designs website as well as my blog. And my blog is where I post all my photos and commentary about what I'm currently working on. So if you want to see my sewing projects and occasional photos of cute little farm animals, that's the place to look. I will be out of town for Sew Expo, but I'm going to try to record some episodes ahead of time, so stay tuned. If not, you'll have an extra week to catch up on your podcast listening. So until next time, I hope you have a great week and that you get to go sew something.